Hello and welcome to another video from the Activism, Influencing and Change programme at the London School of Economics and Political Science with me, Dr. Tom Kirk. Today we're going to be talking about stakeholder mapping. We're going to talk about the underlying logic behind stakeholder mapping and how you can set about doing it. We're also going to cover how you can elevate your maps into tools with which to help you plan influencing strategies to affect change. Let's begin our journey into stakeholder mapping by talking a little bit about why you might want to do this to help you design more impactful influencing strategies. Put simply, stakeholder mapping is a tool for identifying who are going to be your potential allies in terms of the change that you want to see, who might be the opponents that want to block that change or provide obstacles, which stakeholders, organisations or individuals might it be worth forming into a coalition to build their power with, to help you in your goals, and which stakeholders are undecided, or the swing voters as they may be called, who could be persuaded either way with the right set of nuanced tactics, either to support you or perhaps to be opponents in the future. When we're stakeholder mapping, we're also really interested in the level of power each of the stakeholders have to affect change in the system, whether that change is the kind of change you want to see or to act as blockers or opponents. Alongside their power, we're looking at how much they already support that change that you want to see. Are they already your allies or your opponents? Stakeholder mapping really sits at the kind of bridge between analysing a complex system and the causes of a problem, a wicked problem we might want to address, and jumping to beginning to think about the tactics you want to use or might be able to use to affect change. Stakeholder mapping lastly can also help us to track the level of power stakeholders have and how much they may support your goals and your aims over time and as your strategy unfolds. So stakeholder maps shouldn't always be static. You should update them as you receive more information and you see how your strategy is playing out in real time. So a basic stakeholder map takes the form of a 2x2 axis. On the vertical axis, we're interested in how powerful a stakeholder is to affect the kinds of changes we want to bring about in the system. Those that are more powerful are going to appear closer to the top of the map. On the horizontal axis, we're interested in whether the individual stakeholders we're plotting already agree with the kinds of changes we want to see or whether they're likely to already be opponents. Research is needed to estimate where stakeholders should be. And it's really important that when we're trying to gauge their power or estimate it within a system, that we understand power is always contextually contingent. What gives a stakeholder power in one system or over one issue is going to be completely different in another. Sometimes power is derived from the amount of resources or money a stakeholder has. Sometimes it's got things to do with their position within formal hierarchies or their informal position as leaders. Sometimes power is to do with the constituents that they might have as an elected official, or the amount of men they can mobilise as an armed group leader. Power is always contingent, in short. Lastly, when we're stakeholder mapping, it's really important that we try to break down monoliths. If we're plotting groups with labels such as the government or men or women, these are monolithic groups that we should try and break down into their constituent parts to recognise the diversity within those groups. For example, if we're talking about the government, we should plot out perhaps the judiciary, the legislator, the executive. We might get down to different civil servants or ministries or even individual powerful officials within the government, elected or unelected. Similar with if we're plotting a group like women, we might choose, well, women of a particular age group or political persuasion. We want to break down those big groups so that we don't have monolithic stakeholders on our map. It's about honouring the diversity and complexity of the system and the stakeholders within it that may be your allies or your opponents going forward. Let's now turn to an example of a stakeholder map from a hypothetical campaign in Ecuador. The activists have mapped around their smart arson goals. They want to halt the planning for a supposed mining operation, and they also want to secure more investment from the state for the renewable energy sector. You can see on the key that the activists have mapped a whole range of stakeholders and colour-coded them. They've included stakeholders from the government and the judiciary, foreign countries and business interests, INGOs and NGOs, activists and population groups. You can see that there's been an effort to break down monoliths and identify particularly powerful individuals and government ministries and companies and population groups with an interest either for or against the mine. And you can see that there is a lot of stakeholders in the top right hand quadrant identified as both powerful and already in agreement with the smart asks and goals of the campaign. This suggests that there's some kind of coordination problem or something else blocking the kinds of changes the activists might want to see. Continuing our exploration of the hypothetical influencing strategy from Ecuador, we can see that the activists have used arrows to indicate where they might need to design nuanced influencing tactics to change the balance of power. For example, you can see on the top left that they need to reduce the power of countries with an interest in oil mining in Ecuador. At the same time, they want to both empower and change the minds of indigenous communities who currently rely on oil-driven employment in order to make them allies in their smart asks and goals. Likewise, they want to slightly reduce the power while at the same time persuading both the President and the Minister of Energy that there is an alternative to mining and renewable energy sector needs more investment. Lastly, they've mapped out potential members of a coalition where they could build power with by networking them, who could be then persuaded to join their campaign and help them exert influence on the people or power holders with the ability to affect change. In short, what the activists are doing through their arrows is showing how the stakeholder map would look if the series of nuanced and targeted tactics that they're likely to put into their strategy are all successful. An alternative way to represent change in a stakeholder map, or the kinds of changes that a influencing strategy might want to bring about, is to use two stakeholder maps. In this hypothetical campaign, the activists want to stop or prevent police from arresting peaceful protesters in Ottawa, Canada. You can see that they've mapped their stakeholders and their positions on a map as to whether they agree with this smart ask or goal in January 2025. The activists have then used a second map dated August 2025 to show what the system and balance of power would look like should all of their nuanced influencing tactics to move stakeholders around that map be successful. And we can see there's been a huge shift of many of the stakeholders moving into that more powerful, more supportive quadrant, or at least moving their initial positions a little bit, hopefully not providing enough obstacles anymore to be able to block the changes that the activists want to see. So to end this brief introduction to stakeholder mapping, I just want to reiterate some of the ways you can elevate your maps to aid the planning of your strategy. Firstly, use color codes. Identify those key stakeholders, the allies, the blockers, the swingers, the potential coalitions. Use arrows to show the intended direction of change in your map should your tactics be successful and your smart asks or goals be realized. Always try and aim to break down those monoliths, even in identifying individual key powerful stakeholders that you might need to influence. Identify coalitions where possible, thinking about who you can network together to build that power with. And lastly, if you really want, use a second map. So it's very easy to see what the new system will look like should your influencing strategy unfold as intended.